Hello and welcome to Not Just Disney and to the latest in our series of videos in which we will be completing as yet unfinished footballing competitions from the 2019 to 2020 season using LOGacta, the 1970s football simulation game played using dice. We've already taken a look at the FA Premier League, the FA Cup and the FA Trophy, and today we turn our attention back to League Soccer as we complete this element of the season. It's the League 2 playoffs. So how do you qualify for the League 2 playoffs? Well, unfortunately you miss out on automatic qualification by finishing in one of the first three positions. So you finish either 4th, 5th, 6th or 7th. And for this season this has been determined on a points per game basis, as when the season was suspended not all clubs had played the same number of matches. So whilst this is the end of a league competition, effectively it's a knockout. So we have two semi-finals. They are played on a two-leg basis, home and away. If at the end of the second leg the scores are level, there is no away goal rule to separate the teams, we have 30 minutes of extra time. If teams are still level after that, we have a penalty shootout. For the final, it's a single match played at a neutral venue, and again extra time and penalties could come into play. So if we take a look at the final league table, we see that on a points per game basis Swindon Town have just snuck ahead of Crewe Alexandra to be promoted as champions, and joining those two in League 1 next season will be Plymouth Argyle. Today though we will be playing the matches to determine which of these teams will be joining them. That's Cheltenham, Exeter, Colchester and Northampton Town. In the playoff semi-finals the fixtures are seeded, so you can see Cheltenham Town there finished in 4th place playing Northampton Town, who were 7th. Exeter, who were 5th, played Colchester United 6th. And in the first leg the higher ranked teams also play away from home. LOGacta is all about rolling a number of specially numbered die to determine how many goals each team scores in each match. So it is particularly important that we are accurate when we select the die that we're going to roll. Now the playoff semi-finals and indeed the finals are in effect a knockout competition tacked onto the end of a league programme. Now if we use the LOGacta dice selector that's applicable to cup matches, and here's an extract from that, as all of our teams are in the 4th tier of English football, these are the die that would be rolling for each of our semi-final matches. The home team would always get blue and the away team would get red. Now that doesn't take into account the relative positions in the league or the points difference, so the performance that has built up during the league element of the season. So I think we've chosen really to disregard the cup die selector and to use the league die selector instead. So that throws up a little bit of a problem because the points per game in the final table are based on the current points system, where it's 3 points for a win and 1 for a draw. Now the LOGacta charts are based on the 2 points for a win, 1 for a draw system that was applicable when the game was first published in the mid-1970s. So first of all we need to convert all of these points per game into the correct figures as they would be if we were playing in the mid-1970s. When we do that we find that Cheltenham Town move on to 60.06, Exeter City are 58.43, Colchester United 53.46 and Northampton Town 50.97. If we take a look at the league dice selector for LOGacta, we can see how those figures transfer into die selection for the semi-final matches. Colchester against Exeter. Exeter have a points advantage of 4.97 over Colchester, and that means that both teams will be rolling the black die in the first leg. In our other first leg fixture, Northampton Town against Cheltenham. Cheltenham have an advantage of 9.09 points over Northampton, and rounding that to the nearest whole number, we will be rolling a red die for Northampton and a blue die for Cheltenham. In the second legs, the 4.97 advantage for Exeter means that they will get a blue die in the second fixture, whilst Colchester will be rolling a grey die, and Cheltenham will be rolling brown, and Northampton Town will have a yellow die. If you think that's complicated, here's how we're playing the final. Under normal LOGacta rules, for a match played on a neutral ground, the die to be rolled are determined purely by the division of football in which the teams compete. But that poses a little bit of a problem for us, because being the League Two playoffs, all of the teams play in the fourth flight of English football, so the final will just consist of us rolling a blue die twice, whichever teams qualify for the final. And we don't think that really reflects the form or performance through the whole of the season for each of the clubs. So we've come up with what we think is an innovative system to try to pass some of that season-long form into the final itself. So if we take a look at the possible scenarios for the final, first of all starting with Exeter against Northampton, if we were playing a two-leg match, these were the die we would roll. We would roll a red die and a blue die for the away team advantage that Exeter would have, and then in the reverse leg, Exeter would have a brown die against Northampton's yellow die. Now clearly we need just to have one score, as it's a single match that determines the winner. So what we will do is roll both of those die for both teams, and then simply divide the total number of goals by 2. If the total we get gives us a half a goal, which clearly we can't have in football, we will round that down to the nearest whole number. So for example, if Exeter score 5 goals across their 2 die, we will divide that total by 2, giving us 2.5, and then round that down to the nearest whole number, that being 2, and that will be the number of goals recorded for Exeter City. So hopefully that will allow some element of form and a sort of advantage to be passed through into the final matches. Now if we look at the another final possibility, that Cheltenham would play Colchester, again we would be rolling the same combination of die for that match. For Northampton against Colchester, and indeed Cheltenham Town against Exeter, the difference is so small that I suppose we could just roll the blue die for both teams. But I think it's only fair that if we're using the 2 die system for 2 of the possible finals, that we use the same system regardless of which teams actually reach the final. So I think that's explained exactly how we're going to be using LOGacta for the League Two playoffs, and I think without any further ado, it's time to get to the stadium and play those matches. So here we go then, the first of the 2 semi-finals. This is the first leg, Colchester at home to Exeter, both rolling black. Colchester. 2 to Colchester. And for Exeter, 3. Good away win there for Exeter, so a 1-goal advantage into the second leg. Now we'll play the first leg of our second match, or semi-final. Northampton Town at home to Cheltenham. Northampton Town have a red die. Cheltenham will be rolling blue. And that's 1 to Northampton Town. There's Cheltenham's blue die. And it's 2. So that's another 1-goal victory for the higher ranked team in the first leg. Okay, so it's now time to play the second leg of our tie between Exeter and Colchester. Exeter will be rolling blue. And that's 2 for Exeter. And Colchester rolling grey. They will need 3 to take the match into extra time. And it's just a 1. So Exeter go through to the final 5-3 on aggregate. Okay, our second semi-final. Again, Cheltenham, the higher ranked team, have a 1-goal advantage going into this tie. They will be rolling brown. Northampton Town will have yellow. And that's 1 for Cheltenham. So Northampton Town do have a chance with this yellow die. Need a 2 to take the match into extra time. And that is just a 1. So Cheltenham win that tie 3-2 on aggregate and go through to meet Exeter in the final. So remember, even though these teams are close together points wise, we're still going to use the 2 die per team system, divide by 2 and round down to the nearest whole number for the goals. So we'll roll first of all for Cheltenham. Alphabetically we'll roll the red die, then we'll roll the blue for Exeter. So Cheltenham, and that's 0. And then we need a blue die for Exeter, and that's 2. And now Exeter roll the red die. And that's 1. And Cheltenham roll the blue die. And that's 2. So if we take Cheltenham scoring 2, we divide that by 2, it gives us 1. Exeter scored 3, we divide that by 2, that gives us 1.5. We roll that down, it's 1. So the match is going to extra time. So in LOGacta, the extra time is 1 roll per team of the yellow die. We will do it alphabetically again. Cheltenham to go first, and that's 0. Exeter then just need to score to gain promotion to League 1. And they have. If you can't quite see that, I'll just turn that round. It's 2. So Exeter City beat Cheltenham Town 3-1 after extra time and are promoted to League 1. Let's just take a look at the results of all the matches we've just played. So both of our semi-finals were quite close. Exeter ran out 5-3 winners on aggregate, but only won each of the 2 legs by a single goal against Colchester. and the only difference between Northampton Town and Cheltenham Town was that Cheltenham managed to score 2 goals while visiting Northampton. And in the final, Cheltenham, we rolled 2 die for them, a 0 and a 2, divided by 2 gave them 1 goal. Exeter, a 2 and a 1, divided by 2 gave them 1.5, and as we say, we were going to round that down to the nearest whole number for goals. That was 1, so a 1-1 draw after 90 minutes. We moved into extra time. Cheltenham were unable to score, but Exeter did get 2, and so ran out 3-1 winners after extra time, and will be playing in League One next season. So that's just about it then. It'd be interesting to see how the actual League 2 playoff matches compare to the results that we've predicted using the LOGacta dice system. We do have a lot more videos available for LOGacta, so if you're interested in how the FA Premier League, the FA Cup or the FA Trophy turned out, please take a look at them and consider subscribing to the channel. All that remains for me to say then is thank you for watching, and we look forward to you seeing us again very soon here on Not Just Disney. Bye for now.